We're learning more details about Stephen Colbert's crew that illegally entered the Capitol complex and were arrested for it, and who will not be charged for committing any crime. It turns out the behavior of the crew was so egregious that it resulted in a Democrat staffer calling for emergency help. And we've got more, too. From this story over at Yahoo News, Colbert Late Show staffers lied about having credentials before arrest, U.S. police chief says. It's fascinating. These individuals who are romping around, screaming, banging on doors, saying weird things, threatening to slide things under doors, no charges. On January 6th, there are people who have been locked up awaiting trial for trespassing. Now, there's that one famous story back from April where a man was acquitted of all charges because he showed the court the police waving him in. He was acquitted. He said, no charges. They said, charges dropped. You're free to go. Sorry about that, good sir. Sure. There's another guy who had some trespassing charges, and that was upheld. But I think some of the charges were dropped when they were like, yeah, it looks like cops opened the door and waved people in. However, you, bro, you then went on to walk over a rope or something or crossed a barrier you knew you weren't supposed to be crossing. So it was like a minor, some of it got dropped. I think what we're going to end up seeing with this Colbert story is, I don't want to jump the gun. I think we might actually end up seeing this be used as precedent in the trials of many of the J6 defendants. Many of the individuals who entered the Capitol building on January 6th, who are bumbling around confused, will probably be able to use this to get off. Because it will be a crazy trial when they all start citing the Colbert crew and then saying our people, the January 6th people, some of them were riding fine. Those guys, lock them up, as I've always said. But there are some people who were just walking down the street, saw people walking up to the Capitol, and the police had opened the doors and were even fanning people in, as per that acquittal story that I mentioned. And you know what? I don't even want to waste words here. Let me just show you to make sure you can see the facts are all here. Take that one, Young Turks. You want to take my videos out of context? Judge issues the first outright acquittal of a defendant charged over the January 6th riot. I think there's good news coming. A lot of people are upset that Colbert's crew did this and got away with it. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not the one to be like, no, everyone should be punished, banging on the table. Lock them all up. Okay. I think immediately right now, the lawyers for the January 6th defendants, just for trespassing, should immediately start citing this and saying we move for outright dismissal. Now, some of the people did trespass. There's a combination of factors here on January 6th that you're not going to get from people like the Young Turks. I like to call them out because I was right. They're like, oh, Tim was wrong. No, I was right. I said, how will you charge someone with trespassing if the doors were opened by police and no one told them to leave? Turns out I was correct. A man's already been acquitted. Let's see what happens with the rest of the trials. But there's varying degrees here. There are people who fought their way in, fighting with cops, riot, violent, lock them up. And worse than just a regular riot, they were disrupting an official government proceeding. That I get. Then you had people who saw the doors were open, but still bypassed barriers or signs. Good reason to believe they knew they were trespassing. There's one guy who's being charged for that still. And then you had what people refer to as the MAGA meemaws, people just walking down the street, saw a group of people walk in a building, or cops fanning them in. If they cannot prove the individual broke a barrier, crossed a barrier, or in any way had reason to believe they were trespassing, this should be the catalyst to get them all acquitted. And I think that may be the case. JustTheNews.com reports Stephen Colbert's comedy crew was warned several times it could not trespass on Capitol grounds. And its behavior in a congressional office building during an unauthorized nighttime visit was so boisterous, it caused a Democratic congressman's staff to fear for his safety and call for emergency help, police say. That is way worse than many of the J6 defendants. The description that authorities provided to members of Congress this week, loud, banging on doors, talk of a cocaine orgy, and threats to place something under congressmen's doors, is far different than the light-hearted account of first-degree puppetry that CBS television comic offered last month's high-profile arrest of his team. The decision by the Biden Justice Department to decline prosecution of 9 Colbert staffers for unlawful entry clearly upset the department, according to an official letter from the department's chief obtained by Just the News. It is unfortunate that despite all the evidence the department presented, including that the group or its leader had been told several times they could not be in the buildings without an escort, that the U.S. Attorney's Office declined to prosecute any members of the group for unlawful entry. All right. We're going to say two things. The first thing is, my friends, head over to timcast.com. If you want to join us, help change the world and make great content, click members only or click join us, sign up. $10 a month is membership, but we have, other tiers if you want to just support our work. Proud to announce that we have gotten PayPal off the website. We don't use them anymore. If you're a member through PayPal, you're fine. But we are now using Parallel Economy, co-founded by Dan Bongino, associated with Rumble, anti-censorship payment processor, because we want to challenge the machine and be able to speak up and call out the lies. We're making shows, Tales from the Inverted World. These episodes are like an hour long. It's crazy. Shane Cashman going down looking for the lost Confederate gold, amazing ghost stories, true crime, all that stuff. Become a member at timcast.com to help support our work. I'm going to keep shouting it out because we just launched Parallel Economy, and I think it's really important. I'm already forgetting the other point I was going to make, but let's read more, and then we'll come back to what's going on with censorship. Or I should say, let's just read the news. The decision by the Biden Justice Department to decline prosecution of 9 Colbert staffers for unlawful entry clearly upset the department, according to an official letter from the department's chief obtained by the news. So I mentioned that. Great. Now I remember where I was before I did the shout out. This is the reality of law enforcement. You know that we've been dealing with this here at Timcast. We've been dealing with threats, death threats, bomb threats, all of that stuff. Let me tell you about the reality. The reality is when I talk to my lawyer and I say, what do we do? How do we do it? How do we deal with these issues when I talk to police? Well, we have to check to see who appointed the official. The U.S. District Attorney, the judges, all of that stuff plays a huge role in whether or not we think we will get justice. So when I talk about civil war and stuff, there's things people don't entirely know, but let's just bring it up here. I'll mention it now. Probably shouldn't to a certain degree because we have security issues we're trying to deal with and active investigations. But one thing that more than one lawyer tells us is, okay, you got to consider that you operate of multiple jurisdictions. We've got West Virginia, we've got Maryland. We have a presence in some other states. And then you've got to consider that the crimes in each jurisdiction are going to have different outcomes based on who appointed the attorneys in those areas and the voting the voting tendencies of these areas. This is also true for civil litigation, too. They say, in your area, if you file a lawsuit here, the jury is going to be composed of mostly Democrat voters who will probably do X. And the judge was appointed by a Democrat, so they will do X. And it's just like, hold on. We can't live that way. Isn't there some standard in the law? No. The reason why Colbert staffers and associates are not being prosecuted is because the U.S. attorney said they couldn't get a conviction. And they're not wrong. A D.C. jury is not going to convict people they like, period, even though they commit crimes, serious ones. January 6th defendants, that you'll see. Because the D.C. people are going to be like, we don't like you, you don't live here, and we're going to lock you up. Okay, we can't get fair trials anymore, can we? The people who live in D.C. have such a divergent worldview, there will not be a fair trial. We've already seen this with Chauvin in Minnesota. We knew. The judge said, there's nowhere in the state you can go where people haven't heard the story. Okay, well, if you can't have a fair trial, charges are dismissed. Because it is better that innocent persons go free than it's better that guilty persons go free than the innocent suffer. That's not the way the world works. Probably not the way the world has worked for a while now. A good lawyer. Actually, you know what? Go watch SVU, Law and Order. And you will see periodically the prosecutor will be like, we got Judge Farnsworth. And that means we're going to be really good on these issues. Yeah, that's the reality. Lawyers know the judges, and they'll say, this judge really hates doing X. And it's like, huh? Does the law say you can't do a thing? Is the judge going to say dismissed or we move forward based on what the law says? Or are they going to be like, meh, I personally don't like you? That's reality. So It's not just about the judge. It's about the district attorneys, too. The U.S. attorneys are the ones who decide to prosecute. And right here, my understanding, I could be wrong, is that it's the same U.S. attorney prosecuting January 6 defendants and Colbert who said, these guys not going to be convicted. These guys, you better believe it. Take a look at this. Colbert late show staffers lied about having credentials. I mean, look, you've got people on January 6 who did bad things. I get it. Prosecute them, lock them up. I don't think those people should be in solitary. And I don't think there should be cruel, unusual punishment or anything like that. But if you committed a crime, fine. Like, I don't like the people that were rioting at the Capitol, and I want to know who the cops were, open the doors, and why. But the Mimas, the people who charge of trespassing, just walking in, they're getting the book thrown at them. And all they did, many of these people, they were walking down the street. They saw a crowd of people walking towards the Capitol. The police had opened the doors and even fanned people in. And this guy, let me pull this guy up right here. This is a U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden issued the verdict from the bench after hearing testimony without a jury in the case of Matthew Martin. Matthew Martin was fanned in by the cops. He had to get arrested and go through this ordeal. It sucks. But I'm glad justice was served, right? This guy didn't pretend to have credentials. This guy didn't scream and bang on doors and try and slip things under doors or threaten to, and didn't freak out Democrats so that they were like, oh no, help, help, this guy's coming at me. Now, I get it. Many people were scared about the crowd in general. Hard to discern between who was smashing windows and who was just bumbling about. But why do we not have, at the bare minimum, minor charges brought against these individuals for lying about credentials, for causing a ruckus, for defying police orders, and just trespassing? How could you not get a conviction? Scary, isn't it? They wouldn't get a conviction because the people in D.C. would be like, we love our Democrat propagandists. We're not going to convict them. Imagine. I mean, I'll just tell you reality, man. When I talk to lawyers about what's going on, they say when it goes to court in West Virginia, the residents of West Virginia will likely just side with you because they share your worldview on things. And when it comes to the crimes in Maryland, you're lucky that you're in a district that is mostly red and wants to secede, because that's a potential too. But you may end up with many Democrat voters who are going to say, don't know, don't care, you will not win because we hate you for who you are or who you associate with. This is the reality that's probably been true for a long time. People don't realize. And it's why people can petition for a change of venue when it comes to court cases. But that's just crazy, isn't it? When we were a more cohesive culture, it was less of an issue. Sure, you wouldn't want to be in the city where you're being accused because people have heard rumors. But you go somewhere else where people maybe haven't heard it, and we all kind of agree on a lot of these issues. Today, the cultures are so divergent. The left is so cultish, they don't care. I saw some reports that a juror said, maybe it was from Jack Posobiec, I'm not sure. Fact check me. That a juror in the Steve Bannon case said, I don't care what he has to say. I won't believe him because who he affiliates with. And it's like, dude, how can you be on a jury if you're going to say something like that? That's the reality. Steve Bannon is being tried in Washington, D.C. All Democrats. You think they're going to come out and be like, I'll be fair to this guy? No. They're like, Bannon's a fascist, white supremacist, let him burn. Nah. Let's talk about what reality is. This is a very famous story. 69-year-old woman with cancer. Now, I've criticized giving her 2 months, considering she's a 69-year-old woman with cancer. But a lot of people, I think, need to hear some of the full context. Law and crime. Law and crime's decently, fairly decent. And this woman, when she was tried, it wasn't just that she walked in. So a correction on my past statements. I did what I should have done a while ago, and I just decided to fact check and dig up older stories to see what had happened. She's on video, according to prosecutors, encouraging people to go in. Okay, well, you get criminal charges for that. This is not the same thing as this other guy, Matthew Martin, who just walked in because the cops fanned him in. But hold on there a minute. Let's get real. Pam Hemphill, she said, people should come down. She reportedly, or at least according to prosecutors, encouraged people to go in the building. Colbert's crew lied about having credentials, were told to leave the building, snuck back in, were banging on doors. Nothing. I have no problem saying this woman did encourage people to come in, and she was charged because she encouraged people to trespass. She said, it's your house, you can go in. Okay, she got 2 months. Colbert's crew got nothing. Let me tell you about the world we are entering. Wake up and smell the coffee. Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz slams woke leaders for abdicating their responsibility to fight crime, causing his chain to shutter a string of profitable stores because of assaults on staff. I'm just over it. Okay? It is clear now, clear beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that while I can outright say Pam Hemphill should not have encouraged people to enter, she told them, I'm a journalist, I'm a citizen journalist, I just wanted to film. They say, however, Hemphill did not take refuge, and a subsequent video appeared to show her encouraging the crowd to press forward, saying, just come on in. It's your house. Whose house does it belong to? You just come on in and have fun. You just come in. It's all you do. This is your house. Okay. She said, I think the prosecutors probably hammed it up, but this is the point. Did this woman, she on camera smashing things, attacking people? No. Apparently, they're charging her because she trespassed and encouraged people to do so. What that does show to a court, if I'm to be fair, that people around her knew something was wrong, and she was encouraging them to come in anyway, showing that she had some kind of warning something was amiss. But is that it? She gets 2 months for this? She has cancer? Yeah, come on, man. House arrest for 2 months or court supervision. Colbert's crew, crossing the line in a much more extreme way, nothing. That's it. I'm not surprised by any of this. And this is why I tell people you've got to get out of the cities. Because when you get arrested, you will be tried by a jury not of your peers. And that's the issue. They will claim it was your peers. They'll say, oh, they're your peers. They're American citizens. And you're like, yo, these people believe Jussie Smollett. They believe Jussie Smollett. I'm not going to, those people should not be hearing this out and sentencing me. These people believe the media's lies about the Covington Catholic. They believe the media's lies about every single fake news story. So what do? Get away from these places. And then what? I mean, we need to be able to go to D.C., the seat of power in this country. But here's the real issue, my friends. Washington, D.C., part of why it was created, a federal jurisdiction unto itself, was because the states didn't like the idea that the federal government would operate in a state. If D.C. was Maryland, it was part of Maryland and Virginia. If it was just Maryland or Virginia, then the states could exert undue authority on the federal government and put pressure on other states. The federal government would be operating in Maryland, and Maryland would come and say, yeah, we're cutting your water off. And the feds would be like, yo, and they'd say, or you can do this for us. So they don't want that. They needed their own jurisdiction. Here's the problem. The jurisdiction is now 97% Democrat or some ridiculous number. I mean, maybe not, 80% or so. Maybe it's 75. So what does that mean? It means all the people who work and provide services in there will support the Democratic Party. It means the law enforcement there who live there likely are Democrats as well. It means their worldview is going to be predicated upon one political party's worldview in the mainstream press. And it means they're going to be completely at odds with more than half of this country. We are now seeing undue influence on the federal government. And where this goes, someplace dark. That's all I can really say, man. Someplace dark. It's a scary thought. It's a scary thought. It's a scary reality. But it's the reality we live in. I've got some civil issues that we're dealing with. They're not really big deals. Nothing like the death threats or anything. And I'm talking to a lawyer about trademark and copyright. And he was like, well, look, the judge in your area was appointed by by Biden or by Clinton or whatever. So they're going to side with the mega corporations. You've got to consider a different jurisdiction. And I'm just like, really? Like, it's it can be clear cut, but the judge that's reality. And you know what? Lawyers know this and have known this for a long time. That's why they'll ask judges to recuse themselves. It's why they'll try and get certain jurisdictions because a certain judge they might want. That's why they'll try and get a venue in a certain area because they know the jury will be swayed by certain things. It's remarkable, isn't it? It's not fair. It's not justice. Justice would be a logic to the morality and the law. You cannot trespass. Did you trespass? Yes. Okay. Charges. Did you trespass? No. Okay. No charges. Instead, we have faking credentials, breaching a building unlawfully with a warning, no charges. Then we have old woman walks in building and says, come on, guys, go in the building, 2 months. I don't know, man. I feel like this country is going to be ripped apart because you can't have a two-tiered justice system. People will eventually just snap and say, If this is how things keep going, eventually people will just view the government as illegitimate. And they'll say, you're not really seeking to prosecute for crimes. You're just attacking innocent people. Eventually you get to the point, like in V for Vendetta, when the inspector says eventually someone does something stupid, and it shows the finger man, the cop, shoot a little girl. And then all of the residents come out and just with weapons, and he's like, no, I'm a law officer. Yeah, eventually you'll get a law officer doing something and people are going to say no. And we're seeing it in cities. When Antifa attacks cops and de-arrests people, we're already moving in that direction. The only issue right now is the right isn't doing what Antifa does. But when they start to, because of this, then there's going to be two distinct political factions with power in this country. We already can tell that in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., it's hyper-political. We can already see Biden administration is arresting former Trump administration officials. Can I just point that out to you guys? And I hope you're paying attention. The Democrat administration is arresting the Republican administration officials. Okay, that's huge. Do not be the frog in the pot boiling. What else can I say? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.